So when you
Yeah.
mentioned before about speaking as the starting point was more to actually raise the opportunities of coaching. And I love that because I quite often tell the story. I was 10 to 12 years, almost 12 years into speaking to grow business when I was actually opening keynote at a conference without even knowing what that was. And I was in the green room, didn't know that the green room was a thing. It was just like where you gather. And somebody else on the program said, "Oh, you got the opening keynote. I want to hold that position one day. Could you tell me what you're being paid?" And I was like, "What?" And I didn't, that was my inside voice. My inside voice was like, what is he talking about? My outside voice was, oh, I never discuss commercial terms with anyone. And then I went and found the convener of the conference, a very big conference. And I said to her, so apparently because I'm first speaker, I'm in an opening keynote. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, still thinking, I don't even know what that means. I'm like, okay. And apparently that gets paid. And she goes, well, of course it gets paid. And I'm like, I'm not getting paid. And she's like, oh my goodness, we forgot. And you didn't ask. And she said, send me an invoice. I'm like, okay, well, how much for? Because an industrial relations negotiator. And she goes, 10K, will that do? And I'm like, yes, sure.
Yep.
And I'm walking away going, what just happened? Right. So very, very
classic.
similar. And I think it's actually because we build the muscle of speaking. Like when you're actually, when you're actually doing it to be in service to an audience so that you can actually bring them into your world, you really do build that muscle of speaking. So my question out of that for you is, was there a point when you realized this was actually going to be a thing? Rather than just speaking to uncover and reveal coaching opportunities, was there a moment or a phase where you went, actually speaking's the lead, speaking is the thing?
For me, both are still really important. So, and I think that, I mean, who knows over the course of the next 50 years of my life, like, so I know I'll be doing this for the rest of my life, but like those vehicles are so aligned with who I am and how I'm showing up and the impact that's being made. There's different reasons for both. On the private side, it's the, beautiful transformation that occurs, individually or in small group sessions. But then there's something incredibly beautiful about taking a room on a journey and co-creating a story together and knowing that there will never be a moment that you have ever again that's the same as that. Right?
Yeah.
Because every story that you share, you're co-creating that story together. The story in their mind has been created in a way that will never be created ever again, even if you told it again to them. That's incredibly beautiful. I wouldn't say there was a moment. There's been a series of moments and definitely a phase of it, right? Definitely the first one of with the first grand piano on stage of, all right, if that's possible, I wonder what else is. And that's just fueled this insatiable curiosity about, all right, what about this or what about that? And since then, there's just been crazy events. Crazy stuff. And yeah, I feel on the speaking side, it's an opportunity to make impact on a grander, I say with a grander sort of like on a grander scale, because there's depth that you get to go into in the coaching space that doesn't necessarily get to happen on the speaking side. But there is something incredibly beautiful about somebody coming up afterwards. And I love when this happens, of somebody saying it's like you were talking to me.
Yeah.
And that's pretty incredible to have, be in a room of hundreds of thousands of people and being able to share in a way where many people in the audience
feel like that,
gets the insight they needed to be able to move them forward. And so for that reason, it makes so much sense. And I mean, just thinking from a speaking standpoint, if you can, this is the way I look at it. If you can create something that's both unique and valuable, there's not many industries in the world where you can just basically do whatever you want. Like,
it really comes down to
create
it's unique. And the big thing is, are you adding value, right? That's
exactly, because
and once you get that.
Exactly. The way I look at this is I could eat, and I had to tread very light. And this has been an ongoing process. This will continue being an ongoing process for years to come. I see it as unique, valuable, and classy is the third one for me, right? The unique is unique on its own. In my space, I could be unique but come across as like a third grade piano teacher on the side of the stage. Like, that's going to feel like a gimmick like no tomorrow, right?
I just had the circus music playing through my head.
Yeah, totally, right? So yeah, that's not going to cut it if it's unique on its own. And so each of you listening into this, you're going to have your own version of what unique is, right? Unique on its own doesn't cut it. Unique on its own, I'd say, is self-interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to do something unique.
That's about you.
Yeah, I want to do something unique because I want to do it. It's like, well, hang on. how are you positioning that and shaping that and creating that in a way that then creates the value that enables somebody else to transform or grow or evolve or have a key insight or be entertained, whatever the thing is. And then the third one is the classy of it, is that there's yet to be a keynote that I've delivered when it comes to the piano that's not a grand piano on stage.
Yeah.
Because and you only have to look on stage, and if you've got a digital piano there with the chords all out, and it just doesn't look as good, right?
No,
I've got a digital grand that I have. It's officially a digital piano, but it looks just like a grand. It looks stunningly beautiful on stage. I've done a number of those in Nashville. Is one that I get and will utilize there. So the classy component, and because someone just asked me that 3-4 days ago when about a talk that I'm potentially delivering, and I said, "Oh, could we do it with the digital piano?" I said, "Yeah, it's either a grand piano, and if not, well, let's just use the guitar." Because a guitar still looks classy on stage. If you've got a nice looking guitar, it still looks classy because that's what people are used to. So those are the three words for me of unique, valuable, and classy. And that valuable piece has to be there. And that, again, it does happen over time. You slowly but surely formulate, you take the lessons, you screw something up, and then, slowly but surely you piece it together in a way that actually resonates with the audience and, becomes the message that makes the most impact.